little bit. So without further ado, Troy Gates is going to be talking about logic.
Sure. So let me make sure Revit's still here. Nope.
It is. It's on the right.
Down at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, so, no, that's not Revit. Nope, no Revit. So let me open up Revit in the background so it's opening while I talk here. And I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So I don't do a lot of PowerPoint. When the other guys get up, you'll see they do a lot of PowerPoint. I prefer to sit in Revit. That's my power. My power is in Revit, theirs is in PowerPoint. So what am I going to talk about? Let me go back. So just to add on to a little bit to what Jay was saying, so this is just the beginning, and we don't have one here, but the internet also, like I said, this is streaming live to YouTube right now. So if you, like I said, if you have people that can't make these and they can sit in the office and at home watch it, give them the link of the blog, because we go in and add it to the blog as soon as we start the meeting, so they can watch it live. Or at the end, it'll be a link to the same location. It'll be a recorded YouTube. So, yeah, obviously we still want you to come because you can network, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. If you watch it on the internet, you can't do any of that. So, what I'm covering tonight is, originally it was going to be formula-driven families. But because there's 3 of us presenting and then we wanted Lewis to present, I had to really shorten it down to about a half hour. So I'm going to present one family that is a logic-based key plan family and another one that's a note block. And both of these are available on the blog to download. So you can go back and dissect these and go through and look at everything I've done on them. Because I'm only going to go through a little bit of it. So the first one that I'm going to do is this key plan family. So this is just a portion of the parameters that are in this key plan. So what this key plan is it's for a hotel, or sorry, we're healthcare. It's for a hospital, and it's a hotel. It's a hotel. Yeah, it has a bed, right? So it has a podium and it has a tower. The podium is 4 levels, and the tower behind it is 6 levels. Well, the first 2 levels on both are the same footprints. After that, each level gets inset, and then on the podium, so it's only 1 and 2 are the same, and then 3 and 4 are different. Well, on the tower, 1 and 2 are the same, and 3, and then 4 through 6 are different. So there's a whole mess of different areas that we had to do, and so right now I'm with an MEP firm, and so we get it from the architect, their key plan, and what they did is they had a different key plan to represent every area. So they have to go into their title block for every sheet and put in this key plan. Well, it's like 400 sheets, so you can imagine the amount of work that they had to do to figure out first what the right one was and then put it into that title block for that sheet. So I said, well, let me spend a couple hours developing this, and then somebody can just go in and use a checkbox to say what floor it is and what area it is, and it automatically shades in the right area and has the right footprint shown. So that's what I did using logic. So what you can do with logic is, let me go to the next one here and kind of explain the ones that I use, is Revit has logic tools like if, or, and. And these are just a few of the types of formulas that you can do. There's a PDF that actually has like all of the formulas that you can do that's available for download also. But so what's in red is the actual information that drives the formula. So for like if, it's if a parameter. So in this case, I'm using checkbox. So it's going to check that parameter. Is it checked or is it not checked? That's the only 2 values that parameter can have. Okay. So if it's checked, then the parameter that this formula is in is going to say, okay, if it's checked, I'm going to give this one a value. If it's not checked, I'm going to do what's after the next comma and do that value. Well, in this case, since it's a checkbox, it's either going to check it or not check it based on the first one. Okay. So it's just if this or that. Okay, that's all it's going to do. So you can actually nest them though, and you can nest these infinitely. And it will go through and keep going until it finds one that it matches. So in this case, if that one, if it's true, great, use it. If it doesn't match that, well, let's check a different parameter and see if it matches that one. If it is, use it. If it's not, then use a third value. So you can nest these real deep, and I'll show you some of mine that I've nested several deep. Then we have or, which just says, if either of those ones work, do it, okay? So in this case, I'm saying if parameter 1 is checked, go ahead and check it. Or if parameter 2 is checked, or both. It allows it to be either or both. And then again, you can nest these. So in this case, any of those 3 parameters, if they okay? And then again, you can nest these. And then you can combine them too. So in this case, it has to be both 1 and 2, or it has to be both 1 and 3, but it can't be 2 and 3 because it's not checking with that, okay? If I wanted to do that, then I would have to nest another or in there that had or, and, or another and, sorry. So another and, it would say parameter 2, comma parameter 3. Okay, so you guys kind of get the logic flow of all this. I'm going through it fast just because I want to show you the family. And so this one would be or and both of those, or and both of those. Okay, so it's just a whole mix of them. So let me show you in Revit the family I have. So let me move Revit over here to the other screen. Oops, that maximizes it. Drag it over here. All right. Okay, so let me open up the family here. Okay, so there's the family, and turn on the properties here. And I'm going to start a new project and put in the project and just show you how the end user sees it, and then I will show you how I built it. All right, so let me load it in. And you can see by starting, nothing is selected, okay? Let me do that, reselect it here. Let me bring this out. So here's the parameters. So what I would do with this one is what I did is I nested this into a title block, and then I linked all of these 2 parameters in the title block that was the same name. So that's all you would see. Shh. Hurry up. So all you would see is these parameters in the title block. You wouldn't see these ones, which when I show you, these are the ones that are being driven by the formulas. These ones are what you want the user to see. So in the title block, you wouldn't see these. Okay, this is all you would see. Okay, but I want to show you how it works here. So the user says, okay, this is the first floor. Actually, let me move it back over here. I want to nest it on this side so we can see them all here. I don't really need to see it. There we go. So it's nice and big. So you can see I picked first floor. Well, there's no area selected yet, so it's not shading in an area. But if I go in and say, okay, this is part of the podium, and that's P1, that's the area that the architect said, this is P1 on our key plan. So I went in and shaded that. Well, what if I need P2? I just do P2, and you can see it automatically selects that. Well, what if I'm on the 3rd floor? You can see the shape of the building changed and the area changed. So that's why I had to build logic in here, because each of the footprints are different. Okay, does everybody kind of get where I'm going with the family? All right, so let me show you how I built it. So, and actually last night it was good because as I was talking about how I built it, some other suggestions came up of how other people would build the actual objects, not necessarily the formulas. But mine is line works to represent the outline, and just fill patterns to fill it in. There was a suggestion, well, you could do nested families for each area, which would work, and then you would drive those nested families turning on and off. Other one was maybe you would separate them all out into different areas and then use the formulas to drive those moving back into the area for just that one. So there's a few different ways you could do this. In my case, I just built this stacking them all up. All of them all on top of each other, okay? So what this does is, here's my parameters. Let me drag this out here. Okay, so, and I'm going to hide this one for right now. I'll talk about that one a little bit. So again, these are the parameters that the user is going to see. All these are simple checkboxes, no different parameters than that. Here's where the formulas are. Drag this over here a little bit. Okay, so here's the formulas that are driving those. So you can see I have an example of that one. Actually, let me open up the notepad here and make these bigger so you can kind of read what's going on here. Lewis, I'm going to mess up your computer for you.
It's all right.
Make it like 20 point or even bigger so we can see what's going on here. Okay, so here in Notepad, And I would put it on the other screen, but then the live would, or the streaming wouldn't see it. So I'm just gonna jump back and forth here. So you can see on this one right here, that's what the logic is. Or first floor, comma, second floor. So if first floor is checked, that matches the or, so it would automatically check this. If first floor isn't checked, which it isn't right now, it doesn't check it. Or if the second floor is checked, it would check it. So I can show you here real quick. So if I check first floor, you can see it got checked. If I uncheck it, it unchecks it. If I check second floor, it works, but as soon as I hit third floor, that's not part of the equation, so it doesn't check that. Okay, so that's all that logic is doing. So then I can go even more detailed and say, well, let me show an and. So here's an and. So that's the or, I'll just leave it up there. So here's the and. So it's saying if P3 and third floor are checked, then check that box. Okay? So I have a third floor here and I have a P3. So as soon as I check third floor, it doesn't check because it needs both of them, right? So as soon as I check P3, you can see that one gets checked. Okay? Why is it checking this one also? Because these are the outlines of the footprint. Okay? Because the footprint changes, first and second floor are the same for the podium, and third through sixth floor are the same for the podium and the tower, and 4 through 6 are the same for the tower. So it mixes it up, but these ones are showing the outline of the floor plate, and these are showing the field areas. Okay, so that's why there's 2 selected here. Okay, and there will always be 2 selected as long as I select a floor and either a P or a T. Okay, so let's go in and show a nested one here. So what this one is doing in here, I'm going quick because I have another family to show and I don't have a lot of time. So, and then it looks at first, okay, if this one works, that's the or if this one works, that's the or. But in this case, it's and, so it has to be P2 and first floor. If both of those match, it solves the logic, check it. Or if P2 and second floor are checked, that solves it, check it. If all of them do it, great, it doesn't care. Whichever it finds first matching, that's what it's going to use. And it goes left to right in this. So it's going to check this one first, and then it's going to check this one. Okay? So just to show how that works, so P2 first floor, so if I go first floor and up here to P2, you can see it checks that one for this one that I just copied. Or if I leave P2 and I check second floor, it does it also because it matches that one. Okay, everybody following along? Okay. I know I'm going through quick. Like I said, there's a document out there that you can go, and the PowerPoint is out there too if you want to look at it.
And when he says out there, he means
on the blog.
On the Los Angeles Revit User Group blog, all of the presentations, it's all of the different ancillary files are all out there.
So let me go to one of the really big ones here. And put that in here. So I'm going to get rid of these just because this is a really long one. So this is a really long one. So you can see it's nested several times. And the way you can tell it's nested is these opening parentheses. Okay? So or, and. So this is the first one that it's looking at. Does this work? If it does, great, check the box. Then it checks, if it doesn't, then it checks the next one. If it doesn't, it checks the third one and then the fourth one. So it just goes through each of those. Okay, so what that does is the tower has areas that are, like I said, third through the sixth floor are all the same, so it'll allow them. So if I go in here and do third floor, and I go up and just select one of these, that one actually doesn't work on the third floor, sorry. There you go. Nope, I don't have the footprint in front of me, so I can see, there you go.
There you go.
So yeah, these ones are only first and second floor, sorry. So TA through TF are only first and second floor because they're different areas because there's bigger footprint. So they're smaller areas that they did. Where as soon as they get smaller, you have other areas that are different shapes and different areas. So, and you can tell that third through sixth floor only use TG, TH, and TI, okay, for those. Okay? So that's all these are really doing. That's the logic behind here. And that works great for checkboxes. So you don't even have to say equals or any value because it automatically knows if you put third floor, that means it's looking for a positive checkbox. Okay? Anytime it looks at that parameter name, it's positive checkbox. So a few rules. This has to look exactly the same as the parameter names. You can see there's an uppercase F. I have to have an uppercase F here. If I don't, if it's lowercase, it can't find that parameter. Okay, so it is case sensitive. The other one is a few things to look out for. Try not to put periods minus sign, plus sign, no dashes, slashes, anything like that, because those are operators in formulas, so you don't want those in the name of your parameters. Okay? Spaces do work because everything's driven by commas and parentheses. Okay, so spaces in formula names are fine. Okay. A lot of people don't like them, but they do work fine. Okay.
Meaning it ignores the spaces.
It knows that until it hits that comma, that's a parameter. It goes from the parenthesis to the comma, and that's the parameter name. Unless it finds an operator like a plus sign or a minus sign, then it knows that anything before that operator is the parameter name. So if I had a plus right here, third plus floor, it would know that this is one parameter and this is another parameter.
Yes, so it turns a space into like a character.
Yeah, it looks at the space as actually a character, not a operator.
So if you use it, you have to use the space.
And if it said third dash floor, it would try to subtract a parameter which doesn't exist called third.
And floor.
And
so
subtract floor off it. Neither of those are parameters. Right.
The space after the comma after floor.
That it doesn't care about, yeah. It will actually put that in there itself. So when I type these out, I actually don't put spaces after the commas. It actually fixes that. So, and if you put a space between or and the parenthesis, it will actually get rid of the space. So it kind of fixes it up on its own how it wants it to look. Okay. So like if I went in here and put in a space, as soon as I hit enter, you'll see it takes it away. Okay. So, and then if I didn't have a space here, okay, and then I hit enter, you can see it automatically adds it. So it will try to format it for you. Okay, but if you misspell something, it'll tell you that parameter doesn't exist.
Right.
Or if you mess up your parentheses.
Yeah, or if you mess up your parentheses, yeah.
As a tip, when I'm doing complex formulas, I actually do it in a Word document, and I take the whole command and make it a color.
Yeah.
So I know that's a closed command, this is a closed command, this is a closed command.
Yeah.
Similar to how Excel does colors for each cell you've done in a formula, you can start to actually see it, and so when you kind of back in the Revit, you don't go, wow, why didn't it complete the formula like this?
And it'll give you warnings too, like if I leave off this last parenthesis and I hit enter, it tells me unexpected end, which means it's expecting another parenthesis. So let me show you I'll just put it back in there, I don't want to close this yet. Let me fix it. So this one here, let me select all in here. Can't do Control A. And put this in here. So this one is very long, okay? Look at all the parentheses at the end of it, okay? So I didn't want to count it, so I just did one parenthesis, gave me an error. Another one, and just kept going until I finally said, okay, got one.
I mean, you got to start with 6. Come on, you got to go somewhere. You don't start
So this is the only one that actually uses if. All the other ones, they automatically assume you're using if. So it automatically assumes you're doing if or if and, okay? This one, it's just saying if this is positive, checkbox, then this is the value if it is positive, comma, this is the value if it isn't positive. But what you can do is nest another if to represent that value and then another if in there enough. So what they're doing, if you stringed all this out, is an if statement is the value for the one before it. And then it looks into there. So it just nests it until it finds one it works, okay? And this one is actually, is really nice. What it does is it goes through and looks at all of the areas, and if it finds it, it automatically puts the text in for that area. So when I was doing the key plan in here, in the project, every time I select that, you can see it automatically changes the name of the area. So it's nice to know what the area is as soon as you look at the drawing without having to go to the title block and read the title block text or whatever. So as soon as I change this, you can see if I go to P3, it automatically puts a P3 in there. So all that's doing is going through, it's going through here and just saying if it finds P3 is checked, put that text value in there. Okay. So that's all that whole string is doing, is just checking all those check boxes. And there is no error proofing in here. So what happens if I do P1 and then I do P2? See, it doesn't automatically check P2. So the user has to know I can only check one floor, one area. If I have multiples checked, it doesn't work. And Revit doesn't have any kind of error checking for that, okay? So there is still, it's not 100% dummy proof. There is some, values that the users will mess it up and say, well, it's not working. You say, well, you can only have one of these. So
If there's a significant change in the footprint, you're back in the family redrawing line work too, right? I mean, there's
So,
that's connected to
for this one, how did I get the footprint in there? What I did, was take the architect's blocks or families, they exported it to CAD, brought it back in as a CAD block, and then used that in their family, okay, for the line work. I just took that and exploded it, made those into Revit lines, and then copied those into my family, and that made the footprint. You can always put the CAD file and trace it if you want. There's lots of ways, but I use Revit lines for it. I don't need the CAD file. That way it doesn't have that extra weight of the CAD file. Okay. But that's really all it is. I mean, it looks like it's a very complex family, which it is, but to a user, they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. All they know is I'm checking a floor in an area, and if it shows it, great, I'm good, that sheet's done. Okay. So to them, it's 20 seconds worth of clicking or even less. Right? So, but to me, when I did it, took me an hour and a half. Obviously, if you're new to it, it might take you several hours to figure out how all the equations work. But after you do these logics for a while, it's very easy to go in and do this on any kind of family. And this is just using checkboxes. You can do it with links. You can do it with numbers. The only thing you can't do it with is text. So I can't say, if text is this, do something. Okay? And you can't like add text together or subtract text and stuff like that. But you can do all that with numbers. So and it can be links, areas, integers, anything. Okay. So 15 minutes, great, perfect. I'll go on to the next family then. So if you have questions and want to talk about this, wait till after the meeting and I can go through and talk about it some more. Or you can hit me up anytime outside. Like I said, the family's available for download. You can go in and take a look at it and play with it. So let me open up the other family. So how many people here know or have used note blocks? Know what they are or have used them? So I see a couple, okay? So most people don't know what note blocks are because they existed before we had what Jay's gonna present on, which is Keynotes. So before Keynotes were put into Revit, way back in like version 1 or 2, we had a tool called note blocks, and that's what we did for all of our keynoting annotation. Well, it stayed in Revit all this time, and a lot of people that are new to Revit within the last couple of years don't even know that note blocks exist. So what is a note block? A note block is nothing more than going up and doing a new family and choosing a generic annotation. That's what a note block is. So I actually have one more PowerPoint slide that I want to show here, and that is note blocks. So what is it? So note block is a generic annotation. That's all a note block is a family that is a generic 2D family. Okay? And there's only one template for it to create it. But what makes it so powerful is it's one of the few annotation objects that holds data. Okay? When you tag something, you're tagging the data that's in that object. So a door tag looks for the data from the door, and then the tag reports it, right? Well, a note block, the data sits in the annotation itself. So it's unlimited parameters. You're going to see the one that I created only has 5 parameters, but you can have 50 parameters in a note block if you want, and all that data holds in each individual note block. Okay, so it's really powerful. The second part why it's so powerful is note blocks can be scheduled. So you'll see on this one, I can schedule it. What I'm going to show you is a project comment tool that I created. And you can schedule it, so you can see every project comment that I've placed in the project. And you can see it has the person's name that created it, when they created it, a priority, the comment itself. And you can go to the schedule and look at all of those and use it as a checklist. Okay, so what does it work great for? Custom annotation, okay? I can do anything with this. I can make any kind of annotation because it's by itself and it holds its own data. It doesn't look at any other object in the model. Project comments I'm going to show. Symbols with data, so I can create my own symbols that hold data within themselves. Jay doesn't like this, but you can make fake keynotes, which is what we used to do before we got keynotes. But you can still do keynotes using note blocks. It's just not tied to a list of keynotes. You have to type every keynote into that note block. General notes and custom legends, which we do at my firm, and we prefer it that way than using text. We use note blocks to represent, note blocks and schedules to represent our general notes and our legends. Okay? So I'm going to go through the demo here now really quick. So again, how do you create it? You just do file new or file new family, generic annotation, that's it. Okay? So these ones right here are the family that I built, so let me edit the family. So this is a generic annotation. Let me, let's get rid of these so I don't have to keep zooming over and over. So what is it? So there's line work right here, okay, to represent the triangle. There's a parameter here. This parameter happens to be a type parameter because I want to be able to have different types for each discipline. Okay, so I want a comment that's for architects, I want a comment that's for electrical, etc. So that's the only one that's not per object, it's the actual type. These right here are 3 parameters that I use this new tool, which I think came out in 11, that you can actually put parameters together into one label. So I just put in 3 parameters, and I just have, how I want it laid out and stuff. So these 3 blue ones right here are that. And then this is the actual comment. So it's just a single parameter. If you go in here, it's just the comments parameter. So that's really all it is. So it's 5 parameters and 3 pieces of line work. That's all this note block is. So how does it work? So in the project, I've got one of each discipline here just so you can see the different types. So these are all the different types, okay? And if I was to change that one to electrical, you can see it changes. The only thing it changes is the E, okay? So what this does is, to use it, I just click on it, and I go in here, and I can put in the date. So let me fill these in. So what's the 20th? Okay, so there's the date. I'm doing it. If I wanted to assign it to somebody, I can. I'll just leave it blank. So you can see it's filling out that comment. This is something to do. Okay. And I would take this, and because it's 2D and it's annotation, it only shows up where I put it. It's not like, a wall that's going to show up in every view that can see it. So I can put this in a view next to an object that I want to go in and leave a comment for someone to edit, and I just put that next to it, okay? Doesn't matter what view it's in, it's only going to show up in that one view, okay? So it's pretty much it's for putting comments for everybody in the project, or for yourself to come back here and do something, right? So the power of it is let me go in here and turn back on my project browser here, is I can schedule these. So how do you schedule them? You go into View, Schedules, and there's an actual, specifically still built, a note block schedule. Okay? And what that does is it looks through your entire project and finds every generic annotation that's in your project. And you can only schedule one type at a time, or one family, I should say. I have multiple types in this family, but it finds that one family. So the schedules I create are based on only that one family of that note block or generic annotation. And then I hit OK, and you can see that it goes through, and all those parameters are the ones that are embedded in there. We got about 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, whatever. Just make sure, I want to make sure I can go through everything. So these are the parameters, and I can just add those to the schedule. So I already have some done. So this one has every discipline in it. So you can see, there's the one that I did, right? That's the one that I went in and edited in there. So what we do in my company is we're MEP, so we have those. And we have them on an empty sheet, and we have the schedules already on there. And that's our starting view for the project. So when you open the project, you see all those schedules. And then you can go in and say, oh, somebody's left some comments, so you can click on that schedule, right-click, say Edit Schedule, and it'll jump you to the right schedule. And then if I want to see what that comment is, I can just click on it in here, say Highlighted Model. It'll go find the view that that's sitting in, and it'll automatically zoom in on the comment. So it actually will find the comment for you, so you don't have to go hunting around for it. So it's really nice. Okay. So if I was to, duplicate this view and throw another one in here, how do you put them in? You use symbols. So we're just annotate. Okay. It's a symbol. There's all my different ones, right? And I just place a new one, or I can just copy it. So I take this one and just Control and drag it over here. Okay. If you copy it, all the parameters that are filled out automatically go with it. But if you edit one, it doesn't automatically edit the other one. So let me drag this one over here so they're closer. So if I edit this one, okay, you can see that it's fully contained just in that. It doesn't change all the types because they're instance parameters. So they're only for that single instance. So they're very, very powerful. And so if I go back here to the architecture one, which is filtered just for the A's, okay, the type architecture. So I just went to filter and said, look at the comment discipline, and it's A. So I only want to see the architecture one. Then I create a new sheet. I don't have any sheets, sorry. I trimmed this way down so the file is really small for you. So it's only like 100 kilobytes or something. But so if there was a sheet, you could drag this onto the sheet and you would see that comments on there, okay? But like I said, you can go in here and click this one. So this is the new one I just created. Highlighted model. It zooms me right in there, and then I can, whoever's going to work on that can zoom in and start working on it. So that's how powerful this note block is. Okay?
Question.
Do I have questions? Okay. So again, this is available for you to download, look at it, use it if you want. I don't care if you use it, for your whatever, make it look however you want, but it's pretty much ready to go out of the box. You can just start using these things, okay? I fixed it in this, but I need to fix it in the download. So in the download one, so how do you get rid of these, right? You don't want to print and have these all over your screen, right? So unfortunately, since it's a generic annotation, you can put the line work on a subcategory, which I have, but you can't put the parameter text on its own subcategory. There's no option to do that. So if I uncheck comments here, okay, it turns off the line work, but nothing else, because I can't move those ones. So what I did was trick it. I went in, and if you edit type, I created a checkbox that goes to the visibility, and I selected everything in the family and linked it to that one checkbox. Not in this one. So, but look, it's still there. It's just nothing showing in that family. So it will print empty, and then when you come back, turn on. Well, I don't want to go through every one of them and do it, right? So let me undo here. The easiest way to do it is I have this one that's the master one that shows every comment in the project. For each discipline, you only have to uncheck once. Because it's a type parameter, it's going to change every instance of that type. So I hit OK, you can see it unchecks them all. So before you print, open this one up, just uncheck it once for each one, and it'll go hide all of them. Okay. Want it back on, just check it once, and it'll turn back on all of them. In the download, there's a little homework to do. So in the download, the discipline letter here isn't linked to that visibility checkbox. So when I turned it off, the A was still showing. So I fixed it here. Yeah, it was last night. So when you download it, or I'll just update the download.
No, that actually what I like is the fact that if you download that family,
You have to edit it.
you have to actually get deep inside it, select that, that parameter, that
So how do
letter.
you fix it? Just select this guy. Okay, you only have to do it once. Select that guy, and it won't have this selected. It'll be none. Okay, so it's visible all the time. Okay, so all you have to do is edit the family, come in and hit this little button, switch it to show comment, save it, load it into your project, and you will never have to edit it again. Okay, that's the only thing that was broken, I guess. I'm
Does it
using
show
all
how
of
the
those.
parameter already created in there, or do you have to type?
All of this is already in there. What you're seeing here, you have.
But you make it.
No, that parameter is there. Everything was linked to it, but this one parameter.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
I think that, forgive me if I hear the question incorrectly. Were you asking, did Troy make these parameters?
No, I'm saying is the show comment parameter.
Yes, it's already in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
In the
it's already
family
in
that
there.
you'll download, it's just the letters and
Everything here,
Everything
and the
else
line
is-
work was selected, but this one wasn't. Somehow I missed it.
Oh, so,
So the only way to globally turn off all of these comments is through the schedule.
That's
As a
the,
visibility,
or
use the
select-
schedule as a visibility graphics.
or select one of them.
Right.
And hide.
Yeah, or select one of them, oops, and go here to edit type, and just uncheck it for one of them. And
Okay.
all come around. I mean, you could try to go in here and say, select all instances, entire project and hide, but it's gonna hide all of your project, it's gonna hide all of your generic annotations. So if you have other note blocks, you don't wanna do it. So that's why I
Wait,
built
can
it
you,
in.
can you
That's by
right-click-
category.
Can you right click and show me the hide in category parameters?
So if you go select all in project,
Wait, yeah, now go right click.
but see, it's only selecting that type, it's not selecting all the family types, one type.
Show me the hide.
The hide is.
No, select, right click, just hover over hide and view, whatever. Yeah, now, what you want to do with this tool, everybody, write this down. You want to go to this tool and where it says elements, take liquid paper and put it on your screen. And cover that up. That is one of the 5 single most dangerous tools in Revit.
Yep.
One of the 5.
Yeah, ever get a warning when you're trying to lay a wall and it keeps saying that there's already a wall there, and you're like, I don't see a wall there, because somebody hit it in that view. And how did you know there's there?
So when I work with things,
Why don't you just turn
schedules,
the
with
light
certain
bulb on
things,
and
is
do
I
it?
get to a view, the
Yeah.
first thing I do if I'm working with somebody else on a project, I go and I see what they've hidden. I go to that light bulb, what have you hidden on me today?
Hey Troy, do you create with the new version of 2013, do you create views that you can just preset in working views and, display views
For these,
for anything?
Yeah, we create a new template for every project.
Well, you know what I'm saying, as far as the views being able to lock them out, so you can't go and change that and turn that off.
No.
Okay.
Because we've only started one project in 13,
Okay.
because we're restricted by the architects using it, so, yeah. But yeah, so what he was saying,
Yeah, great.
just if you're interested, is you can go in now and set a view template per type.
Yep.
And if you set that view template on there, you can't change the visibility graphics if you set those in the view
Well, if you
template.
follow Jay's standards, and you set that up, then you almost eliminate the 5 sins of
One of them at least.
what?
I think you can still turn off elements. It doesn't, even if you have the view template set, you can still turn off elements.
That doesn't prevent them from removing the.
No, by the way, and all somebody has to do is go to that parameter
Well,
and say,
sure,
oh, let me
Set it to none.
you know.
Set it to none.
But, you know, you have to communicate that because they need to know that, look, if you change this, you're blowing the system up.
Question.
Is it not true that the main reason we switched to this was because we're MEP working on top of the new file, we could not make keynotes. So we'd almost have to put like a invisible block in order to use the regular
Yes.
keynoting system. So because we did this, we used not just for notes,
Yeah.
but for symbols. So all of our symbols are.
Like I said, in the slide here, Jay doesn't like me to say it because he's very, and you're gonna see he's very adamant about keynotes. For MEP, it's hard to use keynotes. It's very hard. So we use note blocks for our keynotes. We do not use the built-in keynote system. We use note blocks. And I don't like to advertise that because Jay's gonna give you a very good reason why you should be using keynotes after I'm done. So, but we use keynotes that way because we would have to create invisible or like a tiny dot that we would keynote to that would hold the keynote value for a lot of our
And
stuff.
people delete it and then you.
Or you can't find it in the next view that you need to do it in. So we use that. If you're interested, afterwards, like I said, I could show you our template if you want. We actually have our general notes, our note blocks, and we put those in a drafting view, and then we use the schedule of that to put on the sheet, and that's our text for our general notes.
You're killing Brian, you know that.
I'm killing you.
No, it's Brian, he's the last.
He's next.
No.
So, any further questions, or I'll hand it off to Jay.
You work with them all day. Come on, you can ask me questions at work.
No, he's getting comments.
That was content.
All right, so.
Thank you very much, Troy. That's awesome. Thank you.
Whoa, get yours up.
Oh, I was gonna give you the time's up.
There you go.
I think something heavy is gonna be thrown at me when my time is up. I have a feeling. Okay.
Stand up, Bob. You're not-
Yeah, that's true. I'll come over here. I don't have a. First thing. How's everybody? So, how to use and abuse keynotes for good, not evil, right? And actually, what's interesting about what Troy said is that they use that because they have a need and a methodology that fits that need. I don't hate on that need or that methodology because there's a distinct reason for it. Because they can't tag through they can't keynote through the links, and they don't want to have these little niblets around. Awesome, fine, right? How many architects, and from what I gather from working with engineers over the years, engineers don't necessarily need so much of keynotes. How many architects? None, really? I got a room full of no architects? Whew, thank you.
So you're done.
Yeah, thank you very much. Keynotes. So keynotes are really powerful. One of the things that you've seen it, carry this around with me, I guess. The 3 keynotes, anybody see them on Broadway? I think they sang Big Fat Cat. So we're going to talk about these things. I don't like to kind of go over the things you can read for yourself. What I try to impart on the staff is that keynotes, should I stay over here because there's a camera? Right? I can float around. People on the internet watching this are like, stop moving, really? Please, you're getting me seasick. You have to remember to present and stand still. So what I like to impart is that keynoting really can be a primary method of annotation. So what I try to get our projects to do, and one day it'll happen, and I know folks that have done it, no text in a project. No text. Thank you very much. Think anybody could do a project with no text?
Yes.
You can. Now, if you want to point to like open to beyond, fine. I'd actually create a family that I can tag, and it's always going to stay the same and look the same.
No block.
Hey, that's a different thing.
No block.
No block. But, so we don't have to do text. And one of the ways we can get by is Keynotes. And the primary thing down here, so that's why I made it green so you can't see it, is that you can schedule them. It's actually a legend. It's a small s schedule. And those, when they go on different sheets, they only report what keynotes are on that sheet, which is pretty awesome. So this is like the world's second biggest
Use a
remote
mouse.
control. Does it click in the air?
Yeah.
I like this better.
You're switching to things, now you're playing.
Uh-oh. Thank you very much. Oh, look, I got music going, everything. So what, just click? Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, and I can roll too. I hope this will be a nightmare. You guys will be like, Jay, stop, please sit down. So, the three keynotes, there's element, right, things, right, objects, material, and the third one, again, more liquid paper. Anybody need? What I like is that correction tape, because you can see a nice straight line. You just put liquid paper right over that. Now, every once in a while, you got to use one of those. Every once in a while. I'll give you a little reason we're going to talk about not using user keynotes. There was an airport project I did. You might have heard of it. I don't know. The guy was a cowboy actor. I don't want to say what his name is, John Wayne. There was this project, and the team was switched just a couple months before a big submission. And that team was a bunch of AutoCAD haters. I mean, they loved AutoCAD, hated Revit, because they had to learn new stuff. They had to do things differently. By the way, my rule, if you think you can do anything in Revit like you did in any other drafting software, you will 100% of the time make a mistake and destroy your project.
Yeah.
Every time. Every time. The workflow, the methodology, the thought process, the tool, the thinking, everything. Don't do it. Nothing. Divorce yourself. Here are my AutoCAD bags. Thank you very much. I'll pick you up at the end of the day.
Even if it feels like it can.
Even if you did, it's the same name on the tool. No, it doesn't work. So, team came on. They wanted to just use user keynotes because they could point to any object and it's actually not pushing the information into the object, nor reporting it back from the object. So everything looked groovy. Well, the project manager went through and redlined all these. How do you know the ones he was redlining were the user keynotes? Because all the others were correct. Because if you had to change the size of that member, you would just change what that wall is, and it would, all those keynotes through the project would change. User keynotes don't. They're just dumb, sitting there pointing at nothing. In fact, you actually have to point to something, and then move the arrow to something else. If that doesn't sound silly to you, and it's a big red flag, rethink. So, came through, Revit ate my homework. Jay, the Revit doesn't work. These keynotes are blown up. This project is terrible. I had to do a full forensics on this project. Huge. I mean, huge. And I counted everyone up, and I went through and everything, and it got down to the vice president of the company. And this is a company with thousands of people working at it. And he said, Jay, what happened? And I said, project manager marked up the project. The team didn't complete the markups. They used Revit wrong. Well, how do they know not to use Revit right? Well, because here is the project manual. And on page 382, where it talks about keynotes, it talks about how to do keynotes. They didn't follow that. Okay, so don't use user keynotes unless it's in like 3 or 4 instances. You write it down, you tell everybody on the team, and everybody knows. Very dangerous. So, material keynotes, obviously, they're going to pull the material value of this wall. It's actually buried down in the material, right? In the type properties, it's like the 5th window in of the, it's awesome. Getting there. But you can push it into that material as well from the keynote.
Yeah.
You're not, it's funny, because when you get the keynote and you select the value, you're actually, right? We're all, I mean, I don't know, I came from hand drafting. You made a box, you put something in there. You were putting something in the box. Well, with CAD, it's kind of the same thing. And when I say CAD, I know CAD is computer-aided design, and BIM is CAD, and Revit is CAD, but you know how we think of it is 2D drafting, so that's how I'm speaking. So CAD is, you know, in that way is kind of 2D drafting. You're still putting some dumb thing in a piece of geometry.
Well, in Revit, when you put that value in there, you're technically not putting that value in that tag. You are telling that tag to push the value into that object's type parameter called Keynote, and the value will be whatever number you're choosing, and it puts it in there to report into the future. So it's technically, in my mind, how I think of it, I divorced myself from that whole past. I'm not putting that value in the tag or in the Keynote. I'm putting that in the object by using the Keynote. That's how I think of it. Maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. So that whole consistency of documentation, the reason I have this image here is because I like to set up, if you give 5 architects and you put them on a project, and they're of differing levels, some are PAs, some are PMs, some are project architects, some are junior architects, all over the place. One person will do one sheet, one person will do another sheet. These sections will be here on one sheet, these sections will be here on another, and they'll be all over, and your drawings will look terrible. And the contractor will have a hard time reading it, and they'll build the building wrong because we're just not being professional. Okay? I'm very hardcore on some of this stuff. Yeah? It's very easy to abate problems before they happen. Just don't let them become problems. So what I do is I kind of created this hierarchy. Them, yeah, we can argue about it. Oh, this should be a quarter of an inch up, or this should be here. I'd rather have my sections above. That's fine. You come up with your own methodology, but create a methodology, hold to it, just be done. For this project, this is how we're going to do it. So our grids were above everything, yes. Sections are next. Then we have our keynotes. Dimensions are below that. Out. Thank you. No thinking. You do not do anything different. Right? So that's what this image is showing, just this kind of hierarchy of things. When you see this on sheets, it's really pleasant. You ever see a detail where the arrows are exactly the same angle, or one of two angles, and they read beautifully? You ever see one and one arrow's like this, and one arrow's like this, and one arrow's like this? I laugh at that. I apologize if any of you have those in your office. I know I have them in my office. I laugh at the users. And then I go and I take 2 minutes and I fix those arrows, and guess what? You put those next to one another, and I defy anybody to say the other one looks better. And when it looks better, it reads better, right? If you write sloppy, can the contractor read it? No. So it's the same thing. We gotta write. This is awesome. Yeah, don't change the picture, Jay. Just leave the one from the template. Thank you very much. Just had to point that out on myself. Little self-deprecating humor. So again, create a policy. Just stick to it. If it's wrong, change it next time. Yes? Here's some of the planning stuff that I like to talk about. Create a plan. Everything's in the plan. There's 4 basic steps to do most anything in life, right? Assess. What are your needs? What do you need? When you need it, et cetera, et cetera. Find out what those parameters are. If you know the end result, right? I need this size project at this date built. You can then backtrack and make a plan to get it done. We all pretty much know that. So it's the same thing with these little micro things. With keynoting, the same thing. Last night, Stuart, if you're watching, if you're not, I'll just laugh at you tomorrow. I print up the Keynote database. And one of the gentlemen last night said, well, actually, he tweeted it. That'd be nice. Why print it? Don't kill a tree, use PDF. Awesome, use PDF, use DWF, whatever you want, but ultimately get something that you can go and highlight and mark things up. So as a project manager, you'll take this, and I'll show you in a minute, this huge document. How many pages did we say it was? 285? 200 something, right? Double-sided print, it's still a brutal nightmare. But you gotta go through and take out major sections. Sometimes you're just taking out a few things. That's part of the plan. Do it on paper or digitally, then you can hand it to a project manager or a project architect or somebody on the project, and they can go through this database and edit it quickly. You don't want to send a user in there editing these things line by line. You'll see why. The file that you are able to download on the blog is that one, the middle one, the custom keynotes, okay? These are completely flexible. You can do whatever you want, yes? I created one that's called Project-Specific Custom Keynotes. And there is a list 1. Why? Because you might want to have a list 2 and a list 3 in the same file. I don't know.
So I did this list, still based on the CSI divisions, but much more generically, right? CO1 is concrete 1. So basically what I would do is I would come in here and I would change concrete 1 to maybe say precast concrete. 3 is precast concrete, tone black, something like that, right? And I would make these things like that. Metals, stainless steel, very generic. Question?
E-specs. Option.
Thank you very much. We'll talk after.
Okay.
Don't mean to blow you off like that, but yes, e-spec
I
is a whole
expected,
other,
that's okay.
whole other thing. Yeah. This is dealing with keynotes inside of Revit. Well, that's a whole, yeah. So we kind of create these, and they're, you see, they're still divisional, how I created this, but they're generic. You can make these totally generic. A's, B's, whatever you want them to say. So I created that. Then there's this hybrid, which has that custom list copied into a file that has the entire CSI. And when I say entire CSI, it's not the entire CSI, but it's like more than any, I'll bet 5 bucks right now. It's more than anybody else that I've yet spoken to has in the CSI, because there's, we'll see when we get to the file, I think 40 something divisions. Right. Yeah, it's like, it's growing every year, so really, you want me to do that every year? And then here's the standard CSI, and then here's the standard CSI list, okay?
Excuse me, Joe. Yeah, chair to be sitting. Thanks.
So that's what that is. There's the hybrid. And then we're going to talk, there's 2 basic ways of modifying the database, either in this thing called Keynote Manager, which is this awesome software that you can actually get a free version. I suggest you buy it. It's not very expensive, but you don't get these ads at the bottom, which is, to me, you look at this every day, it's awesome. Isn't that an awesome tool, Keynote Manager? It is. These guys are great. Revolution Designs.
It keeps it simple, you don't have to do all the Mickey Mouse.
Keeps it simple, yes. And what he's saying by Mickey Mouse is, let's look at the, excuse me guys, we can actually hear that in here. By the way, I don't know if you've guessed by now, I'm kind of shy.
See it?
So this is the Keynote, that quote-unquote custom Keynote database in Notepad on the left, and the same custom Keynote database in Keynote Manager. You can kind of see a difference, how logical it is. So basically, my workflow for users is, if you need to modify a line here or there, use Keynote Manager. Me personally, I came from the old school, we only had this. That's why the Revolution Design guys made that, because this is the only way to do it. It's a tab-separated text file, right? So in between all of these are tabs, and that's how it relates to these things. So you'll see when I expand this out, they're the same, right? So what's happening in this text file is, there is the value, right? First, the number, that's the Keynote number, quote unquote. That is the Keynote value, the text, the Keynote text, right? So there's a number of the text. And then this last number tells it where to file it. So it's going to file it under this subcategory called concrete. That subcategory is going to list under custom list 1, which is up there. So you see here's custom list 1, and it has 3 concrete. Masonry down here is still being told to be in custom list 1, but these are being told to be in 04. You see what I'm saying? That's how you get the 03, 04 class. That's what's going on there. I personally have no problem with this. Now, when you edit these files, whichever way, you do need, if you're editing it here, if you create some sort of error, it'll tell you. If you're doing it here, you now have to QA/QC it in 2 different places. You have, what I do is I open it up into Keynote Manager, even if I'm not going to be using this to edit it. And if anything's mislisted, it'll tell me. It'll just pop up red, you just hit there and click OK, and you know what's wrong, and you go back to this file, you fix those, reload it in, everything's good there, you're halfway home. Just because it fits in here doesn't mean Revit likes it. Okay? You can have a file that looks good in Keynote Manager, you bring it into Revit, and you go into the annotation and you say Keynote list, yeah, and you choose that file, and it spits you out a bunch of errors. So you still have to make sure it's good in both of these places. Once it's good there and it doesn't throw you errors, you're off to the races. So that's what these lists are all about. Here is the CSI list. Okay, if I can actually select on something. I don't know about you. Oh, this one doesn't say it at the bottom. I'm always using different computers. Hey Troy, I like your text editor. I want it. We can still hear you out there. Thanks.
Sorry, what?
I like your text editor from last night. You got to tell me what that is.
Notepad++.
Awesome. And we can still hear you talking and it's being recorded. So just in case you don't care.
You're welcome.
A lot of stuff in these. Yeah, we're talking 200 and so pages down. We're talking, what was it, like 111,000 lines. Daunting task. But you do this once. I edited this database. I changed it from the old, I started with what Revit had, by the way, 2004 file. Thanks a lot for being, whatever, almost 10 years out of date. There's, right, what are we at now? CSI, 2012? There's a new one this year? There'll be a new one next year? Yeah. Awesome! This was based off of 2010, because that's what our office has implemented. Like, we're not implementing every year. We'll deal with it. We'll add one thing here or there. So, yes, you do have to do quite a bit of work. Now, the second thing that isn't in your file is who's used Keynotes? When you go to choose a keynote from Revit, you have a big, long, linear list, don't you? Yeah, just numbers. By the way, I don't. At all. I do not have a big, long, linear list that you have to go fishing through. Here is Revit. Hey, Troy, can you come here for a second?
I walked further away.
I know, no. Hey, tell me where those files are.
They're on the desktop. I didn't download your Revit file, so you didn't ask me to.
The text file is on this computer right there.
It's on the desktop in a 4-core LARUG.
Awesome.
I'm gonna go all the way down the hall now.
You don't want to hear me? I'm going to scream. I don't care.
Yell really loud in my words.
Okay. That's funny. Oh, so we're on level 1, aren't we? Okay, let's blow this wall up. Let's put some bad keynotes into this wall. So when we go to annotate and we go to keynote, right, there's those 3 different kinds of keynotes. I'm going to grab, oh, really? Oh my God, Troy. Kill you. Here's his keynote. I hope there's one. Please be good. Okay, well, it's not going to be mine. I'm going to show you a graphic. Okay. Your keynote list looks like a big, long, right bunch of, and it just runs off your screen, I guess. Is that what it is? Does mine? I do the happy dance every time I open this. I have actually opened this on days where I feel crappy, just to feel good about something. I wish that was a lie. Okay, there's the CSI list. Maybe we'll have another CSI. I just like to plan in contingencies, yes? Oh, what do I need? What is that wall? That wall's, I don't know, it's metal. Screw 'em. Isn't that awesome? So if I am, first, I just know this wall wants to be metal. I'm going to point to 05 double I, and that's it. I'm out. Early schematic design. I'm golden. I know this wants to be metal. Don't know what metal it wants to be. It has information. They can get a bid. Some sort of bid. It'll be rough, but we're talking about early schematic. I don't care. Hey, you know what? We want to get, no, that wall's going to be made out of metal joists. Okay, then we can change it to that later. No, it wants to be something else. Oh, you want it to be steel joist framing. CD time, let's get into, whatever it wants to be. It's an iterative process. One of the, I'm trying to find, I should know these offhand, but I'm trying to find something with A's and B's and C's. What were those? A text file was right there, wasn't it? ABC, 26. Really, 26? I'm gonna go to 26?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go to 26. Not that one.
Fluorescent.
Should I have looked at what it is? 2651? Oh, fluorescent, thank you.
Yeah.
When you said fluorescent, that's what you meant?
Yep.
Tell me if you see it on screen, because I don't see it. 50.
Lighting.
At the bottom.
50, hey, there we go. There. Awesome.
It's somewhere.
Right, yeah, it's somewhere in there. Those are the there's folders that have A, B, C, D on.
You got one right there.
Not the prefix, not the suffix. There's
Oh,
actually
maybe that.
full subcategories, A, B, C. So some of these, and just bear with me for a minute. We'll edit this out in a minute. We're not gonna edit it out, don't worry. Let's see. Thank you very much.
I'm guessing that's what, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it, but there's some of these, let me go to the text file. There's some of these where there were so many that they were in,
Concrete has 03.
it's gotta be concrete, right?
Yeah, it has A, B, C.
That's what it was last
Yeah.
time, right up, right there.
There it is, A, 0512, that'll get me there. Thank you guys very much. And I think you're absolutely right about that, but I got here, 0512. So 0512, where do we think that would be?
Teens.
In the teens, which are tens. Well, let's go into the tens. There are all the tens. Awesome. This is not in your Keynote file, this organization. This folder, 0512A, B, C, D, E, is not in your Keynote file. This was a psycho like me making this and tweaking those and saying, okay, all these things should be grouped. Let's put those into groups. I put them in a group, called it A. The only thing we have to do is have a conversation with the contractor and say, hey, by the way, when you get down to that Keynote value, and there's a little suffix at the end, don't worry about that. Let's just blow that off. The Keynote number that you're used to is the Keynote number. If it says 0.13, look at our specs, it's written in there. So here are all of those things, all of the different shapes in that division, right? And this is the bogus stuff that the contractors should not have to worry about. A couple years ago, there were a lot of contractors who really groused about that. And anymore, they're like, yeah, whatever, we know Revit, we've seen it, we get it, that there's those things at the end. But this is, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know which you would like to see more. Something like this, right? Or something like no. Or something like this to go fishing through. Which do you want to go fishing through? By the way, that's a lot of stuff. Your list looks like this, except it's not tabbed over, right? It's just linear, 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 linear. Mine is not linear. I can do that and just be, oh, I need concrete now. Nope, don't need concrete, looking at masonry. So that's really the logic behind taking some time, dealing with the keynotes, making them more logical, because I want people to use it. And not everybody will use it if it's in such a, a state. So that's about the Keynote database is. This is now about the symbology. This reflects two different studio approaches for symbology. One studio likes colors. The other studio is like, yeah, we do CDs, we don't care. We don't want colors. We're not printing color, we don't care. So actually the studio that does the CDs, that uses these keynotes, actually uses those for early preliminary design when they're doing the pretty pictures. And we'll utilize the small ones for that. So those are actually used by the whole of my office, but ultimately for CDs, these are what's used, and then that other studio, they stay with the color, they're like, they're fancy. It's awesome. So there are, as you can see, I want to say 14 different types of Keynote symbols, symbology. One Keynote family, 14 different types. Is there a, I don't remember if there is a thing, no, there isn't. Oops. I have a list in the handout. Again, I didn't write a 4,000 page handout like Brian did. By the way, he's gonna give you an awesome presentation. But in there, it lists out what A, B, C, D, E, F, G is. Basically, A is for the schematic. So if you're going through and using those small numbers early on and then get a change to CSI, you can start off with that, your drawings look pretty. If you're not, you use one of either B or C or E or F, or G, I guess, if you want. B and E are just the keynote number itself, right, that first number. Well, some studios are like, well, we want to see the number and the text. Awesome, so I made another type. And there's visibility things going on because it wants to be on top of it, you know. Okay. So I made it so the number's here and the text is here and things turn on and off. And there's actually, you know, text here for this one that's visibility out, right? So you can have either the number and the text, or just the text.
I don't want to see the number.
Great, use the one with the text. There you go. Yeah, it looks like text for them, and they're golden. Okay? Remember we talked about user keynotes, and I said don't use them? But sometimes you just gotta use them. So I love making rules, because I love breaking rules. If you're gonna break them, now this again needs to be managed. We need to communicate to the users. We know when you're going to use user keynotes. You better do it right. Please do it right. Yeah? When you use user keynotes, we have these, and I should have made it much uglier, but you choose one of these symbols, and you see how the arrows are horrific? So if I'm QA/QCing a set, and I'm going through redlining, or a PM is going through redlining, they see those arrows, they're trusting that those are regular keynotes, hitting an element or a material. Now it's still user interface, right, if somebody makes a mistake, but if their mind, when I set somebody the task of, okay, today you're going to start to do the keynotes, we have this discussion. Remember, user keynotes use these. So if they use this thing and I'm going through the set of documents and I see that ugly arrow, I know that's a user keynote. So at least I can track it, because if I change the object, this is going to update automatically. That one won't. I need to know what I have to go manage. What do I have to say? Okay, that says it's a 175 on rail. I got to go check to make sure. Why is it pointing to a chair, right? So at least you know you can help the team out. And people generally get that. You know, not all the time, but generally. So that's what those are, different symbologies. Come up with an approach. There was those three different approaches. The standard, which I call standard, is just using CSI. There's a custom approach where you might start with the custom ones and then go into the CSI later. Any of the three. On the handout, there are these links. The first, how to use and abuse, keynotes for good, not evil. Hopefully good, not evil. You know, people can be evil. Has a lot more of the how-to, right? Or at least some more of the how-to. You know, oh, here, click this button, point to something. You know, that kind of stuff. This handout doesn't. It kind of assumes you know how to place a keynote. So there's also a lot of stuff on Revit Wiki Help about keynotes. And then you can download, obviously, Revolution Design's Keynote Manager. I gotta get them to start paying me for this or something like that. But this is just my personal viewpoint about their stuff. It's awesome. So that's it. I thank you guys very much, and you ladies and gentlemen, for your time. And if there are any questions, we'll field them. If not, I'll kick it over to Brian.
Why don't you take 2-3 minute break?
Want to take a 3-minute break? Fine. 5 minute
break.
Let's take 5. Any questions? No questions?
Bathrooms are out by the elevators.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Must have been me. needs to do the next one. All right, awesome. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
No more beer? Yes, Coca-Cola time. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you guys all very much. We're going to get Brian. We got it. Still echo?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You shall use Keynotes.
Keynotes are good. Okay. Please use Keynotes.
I can't see what it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't use user Keynotes.
So, thank you guys very much again for, for hanging out, and thank everybody out there. Next, we're going to have Brian Andresen, and like we said earlier, Brian Andresen is, 2 months into the consortium. So this is the first time he's actually, the second night he's presented, but the first month's worth of presentation. So this is really, similar to the first actual time presenting with the LARUG consortium around. And it's kind of a trial by fire. So like earlier, I did invite you to, throw some spit wads. What we'd like to do is we call, I don't know if you've heard of tweckles. They're heckling on Twitter. I call them digital spit wads because I think that word sounds dirty, kind of. Yeah, and not dirty in a good way. So so anybody on Twitter, you want to throw some digital spit wads, I'm going to pick up my phone and be hammering him on Twitter while he's presenting. So every, if a hair goes out of place, it'll be out there on the internet. So, but no, Brian is actually going to give you one of the most in-depth looks at a workflow of Worksets and Worksharing that I've actually ever seen, and that's really sincere. The handout is 4,000. I'm sorry, 40 pages. You can go download it. 40 pages of Workset and Worksharing.
I don't know what happened.
So,
Yeah.
Brian Andresen.
Thank you very much. I don't know what happened with that. It was a thing where I just got started and I wanted to make sure I included everything that I needed to include, and all of a sudden 40 pages, and I'm like, God, I'm gonna stop there. So basically, I ended up coming up with 3 parts for this presentation. First one is actually the Worksharing process, which, you can figure that out and find that out all over the internet, all over the place. Everybody knows how to do that. And you guys probably already know how to do that as well. So I wanted to keep that to a minimum and basically, obviously, cover it, but go over, more importantly, the stuff that I've learned over the years as far as helping make that process easier and more efficient. Part 2 is why I always use Worksets. And I did a portion of that for this group almost a year ago. So if anybody was in that one, sorry, obviously this stuff's been changed a little bit, but you will probably know some of that. And then part 3 is basically going over some best practices that, again, I've come up with over years and years and years of showing people how to get this done. So that's what I'm going to cover today. So part 1 goes over the Worksharing process. It actually is broken down into 4 parts: enabling it, utilizing it, editing it, and syncing it. And what that means is enabling it is basically just starting it and getting it going. Utilizing is setting up the whole process involved. Editing is the workflow. And then finally syncing is taking all that work you've done and working together with it, with other people. So first part is called the Workshare enabling process. And what that means is I've come up with 4 steps to get through that. Step 1 is selecting the project. That's something that people, go back and forth with, and they're like, well, originally, back in the day, the only time you would choose this option is if you had multiple people trying to work together. And that was it. That's the only benefit people saw in that. I've taken that way past that, and now I use it for everything, for every project, even if I'm going to be the only one working on it. And the reason for that is a ton. I'm going to explain it later, but mainly for backup reasons, for having redundancy with that, and also for visibility settings and working with different things with that. So I'm going to go through that. Enable work sharing. If anybody ever says we need to enable work sharing, they're creating a central. That's all that is. So that takes a regular Revit file and creates a central file from that. 3 is setting up work sets, and that's where you actually take the model and divide it up into different parts. And then 4, you get through the process of working with the file that you've created. So 1, I just wanted to put this image up because this shows you the first window that pops up when you enable it. And what it does, it tells you you're going to have to put every single item in your project into a work set. I've had people tell me, no, I just want a portion of my project in work sets, and that's it. You can't do that. What happens is it's either going to be all work sets or nothing. So this is telling you it's going to do 2 work sets, 1 shared levels and grids, the other one work set 1. Change this to something else, because that's the one work set you can't delete, so you want to at least take that and make some use out of it. So that's the one thing I want to point out. This one down here is when you do set up the central file, I want to point out that there's options of how you're going to open that up every time. And the one I prefer using is specify. And what that means is when you go to open your file every single day, instead of it just opening the whole project or opening what you last viewed or whatever, and it's just kind of random, you can actually have it specify, have a dialog box open up ahead of time, and you can pick exactly which one to open up. So I highly recommend that. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was this portion down here, which is talking about, it's a little image clipped of the window of a central file. And what I wanted to point out were these 3 things. So A, and I'm sorry for running away. A is the fact that this is now the central file. You guys can see I started with this file and enabled work sets, and it created, once I enabled work sharing, it created these 3 files. So first of all, don't delete these files. These ones here, these folders. Somebody in my, I probably shouldn't be talking about people at my work.
They might be watching, man.
Okay.
Just no
Nobody at my
names.
work.
No names.
Went through and deleted these folders to try and help save space and clean up the project folder, and that was fun. So don't do that. But the first thing I wanted to point out was notice that the central file and the regular file both end in .rvt. This is, I work a lot with the IT department. This is one of the few exceptions where you look at the last, letters of the file type, or you look at the file type to see what type of file it is. This is one of the few cases where you can have a regular Revit file and a central file in completely different files. They work completely different ways. You don't want to open up a central file, and so this is why I always tell the guys in my work to make sure you include central in the name, because there's no other way to tell. And you want to know what you're working with before you open it. So that's A. B contains the backup, so that folder that says central work backup, that's the folder that holds all of your backup and editing permission information. So if that goes away, yeah, it's kind of chaotic. And then C, same thing, it includes all the progress information. So when you do the sync with central, that's what it's accessing. Another thing to point out, and when I'll get into it in a little bit later, that's it. So that's going to be where you're going to include all of the backup, all of the source information for the backups. So utilizing it, actually getting it set up, there's a few things I just want to point out. Again, you've created a central file, you've got that there. One thing you'll notice is that it uses a Workset username, and it pulls that from just the username that you log in with to your computer. And what I want to say to that is don't change it. Please don't change it. This one I can't say because I don't work there anymore. The company I used to work for, somebody had a problem. I went to go check on what the issue was. They couldn't open their file. I found out that Dr. Dre had the file open. So basically I had to go through and I found out that the team decided to pick their favorite rapper to be the username for their project. And I couldn't figure out who was who, and it was just chaos. So please just keep the Workset username the same and don't change it because it's just unnecessary. Yeah, Snoop Dogg, and yeah, it was Eminem and all kinds of stuff. So please just leave that alone. It is important. It actually does connect to it. Your local file, once you get that set up, that local file is referenced from the same username. You can't just open up anybody else's local file. So that is important, and just please leave it alone. Creating local files, I have this window along the bottom to show here the different options. What I tell people to do is to take the file from Windows Explorer, copy it, paste it, then open up Revit and open up the file that you copied. And the reason for that is Revit's set up to be able to understand that what you did was you just copied a central file. It'll automatically change it and create a local file from that, and it makes that connection behind the, yes.
Is that when you were using old versions of Revit, you used like 2012, 2013?
Thank you for saying that. Okay, so. Okay, so look, basically what happened was, I presented this last night and that was fun. There's this new option called.
It was when we almost made him cry.
Yeah, well, thank you for that being online. Basically, this is just bad news. There's this thing called creating local, right? And what that does is, basically what happened was, people kept complaining, years and years of people just opening central files, working in the central files. Nobody liked that. It's a pain in the butt. You read it everywhere. And so what they did was they said, you know what? Let's make a fail-safe. Right? Let's make it so if somebody just goes and opens up the central file, it automatically has that checked by default, goes through and creates its own local file, and everybody's happy. So I hate that, and I think it was the worst thing they've ever done. And there's two reasons why I hate that. Number one, it's first of all, okay.
I'm not gonna say anything, I'm sitting
Yeah, you
quiet.
are.
I'm quiet,
Okay.
it's Jennifer, not
I
me.
know, I'm sorry, all right, so there's two reasons why. One, I can't even think straight right now.
Let me preface it for you. So last night we had a discussion during his presentation because some of us disagreed, but that's the best thing about Revit is based on your company, you can do things different than other people in other companies. What works for you, works for you.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong.
So,
So go for it.
my reasons are,
I don't know your reason, so if you're looking
Yes, you
at me
do.
to give you that
Okay.
answer on
Hey,
it.
Brian.
We agree
Yeah.
with you, so.
okay, so the reasons, basically the one is, if I want to work on the file, the central file, I now have an extra step that I have to uncheck it to open the file. That's not a big deal. But the main reason is I don't want people to get in a habit of browsing to the central file to start working. I want them to get in a habit of understanding that they're working on a local file. It's completely separate. They don't even go into the network. Okay? No, don't be all mute now. Can you guys please share your thoughts with this?
So my thoughts on it is, in my opinion, and it's mostly driven because my company uses Revit server, and there is no other way to get your file open other than doing what Revit has built in, which is creating a new local for you when you go in and touch the central file. But even before that, the reason we did that was because people are used to browsing to files. When you're in CAD, you always browse to the network. When you open your Word document, you always browse to the network. So for a long time, Revit made you do the opposite. Was you browsed through Internet Explorer, Windows Explorer to the file, and then copied it to your desktop, and then you opened it, right? So this made it where Revit automated it for you. So I like it, but for him, he doesn't like it.
Okay.
So different
Now,
opinions.
there's another philosophy, and we actually differ in the frequency, but again, it's whatever your frequency is. There are valid reasons for the frequency of this to be much shorter, but whatever that issue is. What we do is we have a folder for the central model, or models, because we get consultants, and we have a folder right next to it for the user models, and the BIM manager on the project makes those models however often they need to make them. And the user never goes near the central model, nor do they ever touch it, nor do they ever look at it. Ever.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
Because I'd hide the thing.
Oh, no, I have
I'd be
handcuffs.
hiding it.
There's electricity. It's like they get
And you know. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're gonna work with me. You're gonna go to that central model one time and that'll be the
Yeah,
last time,
that'd
right?
be the last time, yeah.
But, so that's how we do it, and what we, I've come from all different size firms, and having done some benchmarks, at least whether it's real or it just proved it to me and our teams, having those files locally to one another made the overall save times. Now, there's some other procedures that we do with our synchronized to centrals, because yes, if you have the file local on your machine and you do a sync to central, the save to local is faster, but the save to central is still across the WAN. Nothing is across the WAN other than the stuff you're pushing to your screen. So the central and the locals are right next to each other, so that time is as fast as it possibly can be. That's our philosophy. Different philosophy. And for Revit Server, absolutely, that wouldn't work.
You don't have any choice.
Right, you don't have any choice with the Revit Server. With mine, so that's a different philosophy. I think Joe might.
I use something similar to yours, but I use links on their desktop directly to their user file in the network. That way they know the network.
That's what I would do. I'd probably do that.
Right?
Yeah.
This way they don't have to
Still hide
browse
the
and
rest.
find and make
Would
sure
your,
themselves.
would your system work great for multiple offices when a local office has model on their server, but a regional office has to also open that file? Having all the locals and the central near the same folder structure,
It's gonna
that
speed up your WAN.
So
that would help the regional office.
that would help the regional office. What would help more with the regional office is tell them to get a life and
Get Revit Server.
either get Revit Server, or if you don't do that, log into a local machine and work on that local machine, and all you push across your internet is the mouse move and the screen. That's what I would do for large companies.
We
and
actually
multiple
do that, and
offices.
we use Xanax with virtual machines on there.
Awesome.
That
We
way,
use Revit Server for like 8 offices.
yeah, that way
And
the
that works for
Xanax
us.
launches and emulates just the application and not a whole Windows environment. And it looks and feels like it's just local in their environment.
It's like 1842 again, right, with those dumb terminals. Your computer's, who knows what room it's in, but your terminal is just, pushing the keyboard around.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, yeah, so everybody.
Sorry,
on the
Brian.
internet's just
Back to
hearing
you.
a lot of stuff and not seeing it. They're seeing Brian go like this.
Back to Brian.
So, yes, anyways, basically, there's different ways to do everything, but that's the thing about dealing with creating the local files. And then also, when I say to use specify when you open it, a lot of people don't realize where that is. It's basically, you have to use in that little tiny arrow next to open. So I don't know, I don't understand. It seems like they try to hide stuff every once in a while, but that's what that is. And then this football diagram down here is basically going over all the different ways to utilize the Worksets dialog box. Active Workset is the thing where you're actually, when you're working in the file, you choose what the active Workset is. And basically,
Call him out. Call him out. He called me out. Call him out.
and so, gray and active worksets, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. See, it's important to know the difference between open and editable. Editable is actually, you're doing the work. Open, you're actually viewing the information and it's there. And I'm going to explain the difference between open and in the visibility settings in a little bit. And then E is visible in all views. This was something that wasn't available as an option to be whenever until recently. It used to be you had that choice once when you first started the work set. If you screwed up, you were done. You had to start all over again. So last thing I want to point out is this top corner piece up here, those three little pictures. I used to have to, every time I would go to support somebody, I'd have to say, hey, are you guys in a local file or central file or just a regular file? And I got really tired of asking because half the time they would say, I don't know what you mean. So what happened was I figured out that because you only have those three options, those little icons will be lit up a different way. And there's only those three options. And you can completely tell. I don't even ask them anymore. I just walk up and the first thing I do is ignore what they're saying and look at the screen and look at that point. And that's what it tells me what I'm dealing with. If I see the top one, I know that they're working in a regular Revit file. All right, they can do whatever they want. Worst thing they're going to do is ruin their file. If it's a local file, the middle one, if they're both lit up, that means it's a local file. Then I gotta pay a little bit more attention to them because that's something that they could really cause problems with a giant project with other people. And the last one, I get really scared because that means they're in the central file and they were never supposed to open that in the first place. So it's really good to be able to see that and know right away and just get it in your mind. When you see that, you know what you're dealing with. And definitely helps with supporting people. Editing Workshare projects. So then the next part is discussing checking out versus borrowing. Another
Yeah, I'm gonna leave, so.
Another fun thing that was discussed yesterday, basically discussing the difference between checking stuff out and borrowing, and then also editing requests are the two main things when you're dealing with editing Workshare projects. So checking out is something that I always tell my guys to do. It gets you in the habit of basically getting your mind set on working in one area, doing the stuff that you gotta do. You check it out so that nobody else can mess with what you're doing. You're not gonna get, you know dang well that you're not gonna have any problems with working with the stuff that you have checked out. And it's just better security overall. Borrowing, people usually come to me and say, I like borrowing because I don't want to spend the time to work together and communicate and figure out who's going to check what out. That doesn't make any sense to me because I actually think that if you're borrowing stuff, you need more communication because you're now going through and picking whatever you want. Somebody else is picking whatever they want. Who knows if that stuff's overlapping? And 99% of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to get, if you pick something somebody else has, it's going to give you a dialog box, a warning saying, you can't do anything with that, it's already been checked out. Then you go through this fun game of editing requests. My thing is, I don't even like having to go there. I like to check out the stuff that I'm working with, be able to work on it, know that I'm not going to have to deal with the stupid editing requests, know that I'm not going to have a time where I'm trying to move something and it's already been moved by somebody else. It's just easier for me. Other people like other types of workflows. I'm going to hear about it. So the borrowing, in my mind, borrowing actually requires more communication because now you got to say, look, if I'm going to touch this and you need this, then we're going to go over here. I'm going to borrow it. You need to make sure you grant it. Then, anyways, it's also risky because when I said 99%, I have had times where somebody picked something, somebody else picked the same object, it locked it up, and we started the game of who did more work because that's the one that gets the save. Jay?
So if there was 1% of the time where the editing, where I could grab this water and Jonathan could actually grab that water in his file.
Yes.
If it was 1% of the time, I would not call you on this. I don't believe it is anywhere near 1/10 of the time where you can actually, two people can have the same thing owned. I know that there are some issues that come up with dirty backup files, but that is not 1% of the time. Now, one thing that you did say about when you use element borrowing, it takes communication. Yes. And if you want to run a project without communication, you're going to have bigger issues. Element borrowing is awesome because I can put 5 people working on the interiors portion of a project and they can all work on the interior stuff. I don't have to break out desks and different kinds, all these different work sets for portions of the interiors. I can create core and shell and interiors and several people can work on either. So whereas your workflow works in situations where it's managed, it doesn't work in others. So just, there are other methods, and that element borrowing, I think, is one of the most powerful things in Worksets that Revit has implemented.
Just one quick comment too.
Oh, Troy, please.
I didn't get to comment last night on this. By the way, so
Troy, please.
Revit server
Look at
will.
the camera, please. Yes, thank you.
Let me get up
Over
here.
there.
So Revit server will fix your 1% because they changed how it tracks who is selecting the objects for borrowing. So when it's on the network, like most of the people are using it right now, it puts a database text file where it logs all the elements that everybody has. Well, on Revit server, it has to communicate with the Revit server or we'll never even check it out to you. So Revit server then tracks your objects, so you'll never have the 1%.
All right.
So obviously you can tell I like to promote Revit server, so I'll do a presentation down here one of these days on Revit server.
I have yet to get Revit.
Yeah, he had to get it to work. I have it working all across the country and overseas.
Why don't you come into our offices?
Okay.
So yes, basically, just do whatever you want. So we're gonna go over editing requests. It's just a basic process. The only thing I was gonna point out is that you used to have to go through and request something, then have to go and find the person and tell them to do something because it didn't automatically inform them. Now it does, so that's good. I have noticed that it often requires me to do a sync. You guys probably never have that problem.
No, always.
Oh, okay, good.
You almost
Hey,
always
great.
have to sync.
I actually never, I tell people never to accept or deny, well, I mean, if you want to deny, but I never do that. When you get an editing request, hit SC, synchronize to central.
And that will solve it every time.
And it just deals with it, and then the request goes with it.
So now you have a broken up piece in central. The user might be working on something and he's not done with it.
Oh, and everybody sees what he was
Now everybody
working on in
sees
the
what
middle
you
of
got
it.
And you can't print it. Enter.
Well, we're hopefully not borrowing things when we're 3 seconds away from printing a set.
Let's say they want to print a sheet or whatever.
Right, don't be borrowing things when you're printing a sheet for whatever.
I'm saying
Click
is
backwards.
Another user.
some of the complex geometry requires hours of work.
Oh! Again, this is where communication comes into play, yeah.
Some of our forms that we do.
I'm not messing with this desk and having you to relinquish it when I'm
They must
twisting
have
it out.
borrowed for 6 amounts.
So in cases, you know.
Oh, no, there are clearly cases, there's, again, totally across the board. This is not to say that what Brian is saying is
No, it's
wrong.
not right or wrong, it's just different.
It's not. It's just, that's a workflow that works in certain situations. There are other workflows that work in others.
I'm learning that I'm gonna be,
Come on, man.
I'm gonna be doing the
You got
same
5
with you
minutes.
guys. Oh, yes, okay.
No, you can go as long as you want.
Okay, all right.
You can go as long as you want.
All right.
just
So,
kidding.
We got another presenter, hurry up.
we gotta, oh my God. All right, so I'm gonna get, please just, all right, let me finish this. So basically, last thing we're not gonna go through, synchronization, sync now, sync with settings, other options, we're good. Okay, so part 2, this is why I always use Worksets. Increased stability, and this is in order of what I consider most important. Increased stability, project management options, better opportunities overall, and then working with links. So all of these things become available when you enable Worksharing on your project. So first thing, increased stability. You've got more secure, stable, and efficient backups. You've got the ability to close portions of the project and faster load times with better options. So the first one alone is something that I really like because what happens is it actually takes, and when I showed you guys that file originally, within those 2 folders, it holds up to 20 backups of the project. Whereas the regular file saving in Revit, you've got the 100 meg file, right? You hit save once and it creates a backup. It's the same name, .0001. Save again, copies another one, 0002. And it'll do it up to 3 times. And so now you've got, obviously you've got 3 backups plus your original, but now you've got 400 megs in your folder. And take that times about all the projects in your company, that's a ton of data storage. This gives you 20 versions of backups, okay, so that's a lot more than 4, and it goes through and puts all of that into those 2 folders that equal about 1.5 times the file size. So it's a lot less space and a lot more backups. And so that's the network storage part. Again, limited backups, it gives you a lot more options there. It's actually, the whole process was made for Revit. It's not like the regular, Word and Excel where you just take a regular file and make a duplicate and that's your backup. And so it's kind of nice that they actually make that. And here's the button here for it to restore the backup. Again, there's 20 versions. One of the really cool things is it'll tell you when you go to restore backup, it'll give you a dialog box showing you all of the different times it's been saved. It includes the date stamp and the name of the person that had done that save. So if you know that somebody's been saving and they've been doing something really wrong, you can go back and not just restore the last backup, but you can restore the last backup that they didn't touch. That's been really helpful for me at different times.
Do you have a different default other than, I mean, I know 20 is the default for backups. Do you suggest a different number?
I don't, because 20 is the default and it works
100.
Yeah, raise it up. It's based off of how often you suggest people save. So if you have people saving every half hour, 20 isn't even a whole day. If you have people saving every hour, well, then you got 20 hours worth.
Well, this is only counting the sync, right?
Every time they
They
sync.
sync with Central.
So it's based on how often you suggest they sync.
Wow, okay.
Four people working on the project, save 20 times a day, that's 8.
Yeah, that's 80 right there. Exactly.
Yeah. So a 20 with 4 people would get you 3 hours. So you're not getting yesterday's or last week's. You're getting early this morning's. Hopefully it was good then.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's definitely a good idea.
The bigger the team, the more people working on the project. the higher-
So, do you know if the file size changes if you go from
Not
20 to 100?
It's not a lot because it's a database file.
It's
And
those-
it's just logs each sync in one database
So it's
file.
maybe twice the file size
Not
at the
even,
most?
not even much more than 20, 50 is almost negligible.
Huh. All right, and then on top of that is the last part is basically saying that not only do you have all of that as a new option, but you also have your local file as an extra backup. So there's been times where I've had somebody that have done something really messed up. I just tell them, you know what, don't even bother. Just throw your file away, create a new local, and we'll just pretend like you never did that.
But I had a quick comment.
You mean where'd the curtain wall go? Yeah, we'll just ignore that one.
Hey, Brian, just a
Yes.
quick comment about the length of it. So, at a company I was at, it was time to do a set, like it was like 95% CD, and they noticed a whole level was gone, like the whole basement, because somebody deleted the level, right, and it deleted everything. And they didn't notice it for a couple of days, and we had to go back, and we were doing like 300 save points. And we were actually able to open it up and select everything on that level and copy and paste it into the project. So it is very valuable to have those backups. Very valuable. Yeah.
So, with all that being said, that I think is enough alone to recommend always using Worksharing, even if you're working on a file completely by yourself. Ability to close portions of the project. If you're doing a large Revit file project and you're working on it completely by yourself, this is besides the backups, this is the second most beneficial portion of this. What you can do is literally take those work sets once you've got the project broken up, and it's one thing to be able to edit different things and check them out and work on them, but that's all over here dealing with editable and owner and borrower. Open is this whole other column here where you can actually take and close out sections of your model. And by close I don't mean you just turn it off. I mean it takes it out of the memory. It takes it out of the project. You can take a huge campus, turn everything off except for a portion of the admin building, and it feels like you're working on a one-story little house. It's amazing how you can spin it around and you open up the sections and work on it like it's nothing. And so this ability to be able to close off other portions of the project is huge. So I highly recommend it because not a lot of people do it. They focus over here on thinking what to work on or what to borrow, and they don't even really ever mess with that. And I think it's a big deal. So it's definitely a big time saver. And then faster load times when you guys do use that specify option. And the cool thing about that is if you set that up in the central file the first time you do a save, that's going to make that be the case for every time somebody creates a new local. It's going to default to that. Project management, I'm way over on time, sorry everyone, but basically I've got locking work sets, visibility settings, and view templates. I'm not going to go too much into this, but basically just pointing out that one of the really cool features that I discovered, I don't know, a few years back is that there's times when I would be working on a project and all of a sudden somebody would come over to me and, hey, we've got this new guy, they're gonna help you out. And I'm like, okay, well, go ahead. And then 30 minutes in, all of a sudden I go to another section and half of a building's gone, and I go to the person, like, what'd you do? It's like, oh, well, level 1 and level 2 was too close to each other, so I just deleted level 2 to clear that up. Okay, well, there goes half the building. So, and what? I'll talk about that some other time. But anyways, basically, it's a really cool way where if you get a portion of your model done, just check it out. And I've seen some other people post on blogs and stuff, or I've heard other people talking, and they'll say, okay, well, you go ahead and you log in as some other username and you check it out, and then that's protected. It's even protected from yourself. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. But the idea is to basically check stuff out, and you can actually use that as a way for locking Worksets. And then visibility settings is it just gives you a whole nother level of being able to turn stuff on and off in your project. Really good stuff. I include links, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. And view templates, again, it's just one more thing. View templates are amazing. If you guys don't use it, please look into it, because you can go through and make all kinds of changes to your view templates. But this is just one more option that you can actually go through and edit the Worksets for that. Better opportunities. So I'm getting to the end right now. People can help. Return to a single file and show history. This one up top is probably the third biggest thing for me, is to basically say, if you're working on a file, this has happened so many times, where the project starts and the scope is such that we only need one person working on it. Okay, fine. They don't do Worksets, because they don't want to mess with having to set an active Workset, whatever. They go through the project, all of a sudden the scope changes, all of a sudden stuff gets added to the project. Pretty soon they're like, crap, we need a couple more people on it. Well, guess what? You're already in DD phase, and we now have to go through and set up Worksets, take every single object and apply it to Worksets. It's not like the beginning where you can set up a Workset and add it as you go. Now you've got to go through and edit every single item and put it into the right Workset. It's insane. I've had to do it 2 or 3 times now, and it's hours and hours and hours. It's really annoying. You can't just sit there and window the whole floor and put it in. And so I always say set up in the beginning, because it's a huge pain to change halfway, and deadlines are often. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have Worksets set up, you are just working on it by yourself, all of a sudden deadline comes up, you need a couple people to jump on it, they can jump on it and help you. Otherwise, if you don't have Worksets set up, they can just sit there and watch you work, because they're not going to be able to get in there and work with you at all. It's not going to happen. So that's the idea behind that. Returning to a single file. This is something that a lot of people would say no to Worksets, because they thought, well, if I don't like it or it's too much of a hassle, I can't go back. Now you can. I still don't include it in the template, because it's still a little bit of a confusion for some people to be able to take this central file and detach from central and save it somewhere else. So I don't have it in our template, but I do tell everybody, once you start the project, set up Worksets. And the other reason why is because when you do set up Worksets, you kind of want to at least put a couple in there, and every single project is different as far as how you divide it up. So there's really no point in having anything already in a template for that. And then finally, show history. I basically tell people, this is the fourth coolest thing with using Worksets, is what you can do is you can go through, and when you save, or sync now, you can put in a comment. And it's in I don't want to go back, but it's in the sync with central dialog box. There's a spot that says comments. And what you can do is you can put in, major accomplishments, or if something happens, or if there's a plot point, or whatever you want to do, you can put it in there, and that then can be accessed. That can then be exported to Excel, And so anytime maybe you have a boss or somebody that wants to see what the progress is of the project without having to open up Revit, that's an option that's available. And it's really cool. I like it, and you can see, who's getting stuff saved and who's actually putting comments in there. So that's my thing. And then the last thing, working with links. This is just real quick, but basically this opens up a whole nother level of working with links. Everybody complains about not having very many options when it comes to links, but if you get Worksets going and then you start merging the two together, you can get some really cool things to come from that. Whoa, let me go back. Hold on. So manage Worksets, basically you get a whole new tab. You get to be able to go in here and under the manage links dialog, and you can go in there and manage that. It gives you a whole new level of visibility settings. Again, I talked about visible in all views, and then here's that gray inactive, and that's a really cool thing where if you're working with a bunch of people and you've got a certain portion checked out, but let's say it's the middle of this large overall building, you can go through and click that button, and what happens is everything else is grayed out. You can see as you're working along, you're coming to the point where stuff's grayed out, you know not to step over that. Of course, Jay doesn't do that, nor does Troy, but that's what I do. So,
Can you apply color to Worksets? Isn't there a way to visibility of Worksets to have different colors so you can know if things are grouped?
they do.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's a really cool little.
Be able to see if these are in the right Worksets, just have stuff on and apply colors to them so you can see them all.
And you can tell which person has which thing and which one's been edited recently. And yes, Jay?
And it's also really good, it's not necessarily about who's got what and working, though it does work for that. It's really brilliant for coordination. When you have your linked models in and you want to see different things, I want to see my MEP as red and the structural as green, etc. That is a brilliant way to do it. So that's one of the primary reasons was when Autodesk brought in the construction, right, with the assemblies and all that. They added that because we've been crying for that since 1843, but it kind of works with that construction methodology.
So basically, what I'm going to do is this last.
Man, that wasn't even only me.
This last section is basically going over these three sets of 10 things. It's just a general process of the using Worksets, best practices, and top 10 tips. And what I want to say is, in the handout, I know it's 40 pages, I'm sorry, but the last page, what you can do is just print the last page, because what it is I put all of that. I'll just show you real quick because I'm way over. See all this, then all that, then all that. All of it's on one page. It's not like 8 fonts. It's good. You can read it. But it basically it allows you to have that kind of like a cheat sheet. One goes over just the basic process of working with it, and so it's a good thing. So I wanted to make that available to use for you guys way after this meeting's over with. So. Thank you guys very much. I'm so sorry for running late, but I've had some really good, not interruptions, but advice and input from other people. And so thank you. And Jay, anything else?